strings of fire. We're going to be using the practice score app to keep track of the score. So I'll kind of show you, I'll be doing all the scoring, but so you guys can understand it if you're curious. This app is free. You can download it and you can literally put courses of fire in there so you don't have to do the math every single time. If you're like me, math hard. Near to far. All right, 365. So then I take note of that. My time. I can already call 2 alpha there. I think I went Charlie Charlie on either side. I also over transition. I share this with you because again, when you watch me shoot, this is constantly what I'm doing. These felt okay. I over confirmed on this first one, but I'm just going through going, hey, where did the process fail me? Now, far to near. Does that make sense? That one felt much better. On the far target, I really told myself, hey, look at the target. Don't look at, don't focus on the dot where it's at. You'll find that it's just easier to trust what's going on. So now that I have my times, my 365 and my 303, what I'll do is I grab pasters and take a look at your hits. Obviously the close ones you'll be able to see, but on this cold start, I kind of want you to turn and more specifically that one. Tell me what you think went on with that one, right? So this one, all alphas. Another 4 alpha here. And I have 3 Charlies. 1 alpha, 3 Charlies. Okay, so it takes my time. It tells me that my hit factor for this, my total time, my total points, everything that I scored was an 8.083. Make sense? Now, you're going to be like, well, what does that mean? Well, when all of you guys shoot it, then you'll be able to tell. Okay, so you'll be on these targets, so I'll use these as demo targets then, that way it's getting. So now I'm gonna take you basically down the rabbit hole of what you need to practice in order to execute that good. So we could look at that drill and say, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Give me some skills that drill just showed us. What are some things that break them into isolation? What are some things that we needed to use to do that drill well?
The thing I suck at is transitions.
Transitions.
That's where I can speed up.
100%. Transitions.
Initial grip.
Initial grip.
Yeah.
Trigger.
Yep, it's all there, right? We have manipulation of our trigger, we have grip, we have transitions, we have draw, which is just another form of transition. So yeah, it's all there, right? It's all, when we're shooting, all those things have to come together. Guys, I am a huge believer in the fact that our brain can only think about one thing at a time. That's conscious thought. Your conscious is only as fast as you are. You can bounce between things. If you're like me, I'm ADHD. I can bounce between things and then get super fixated on one thing. So everyone's a little bit different, but your conscious brain can only really think about one thing. When you guys are practicing today, when I let you go into the practice, I ask that you put conscious effort into developing subconscious processes. Subconscious is the only thing that can bring all that stuff together we just talked about: transition, trigger manipulation, grip, sights, confirmation, all that. Until that becomes subconscious, it's taking away from your ability to be present. When we talk about grip, right? All of you guys have a pretty good grip, so I'm not gonna spend a bunch of time as I was watching you. I think you kind of all know where you need to be with your grip.
Getting there is a whole other story though.
Getting there is a whole nother story, okay? So grips need to be 2 things, right? They need to be consistent and they need to be effective. I think all of you here pretty much understand, if I told you you have all the time in the world, just build an effective grip, pretty much everyone here can build an effective grip, right? So part of the reason I do that demo is to see hey, is there anybody that that maybe is a little bit behind in the effectiveness of their grip? But all of you guys are pretty good at gripping the gun. Yeah, sure, maybe some pressures could change, some different things could happen. I'll kind of critique that as we go. But what we need is a consistent grip, okay? So consistency and effectiveness, that's what we're focused on. Now, draw, I'm not gonna spend a bunch of time with. Everyone here is drawing from different positions. I didn't see any major issues, really honestly, anything that I needed to critique, right? As far as your draw goes. But I will tell you this, your draw today should only be as fast as you can get a good grip. If you're going so fast and your grip is completely falling apart, guys, that's homework, right? If you want a faster draw, the only way to do it is go find a light switch and draw and point your gun at it in dry fire over and over and over again. Today, you're not gonna make any major gains in your draw, right? It's just not gonna be crazy. I do have one thing that's gonna be quick and easy for me to demonstrate for you that will probably make a big difference with those 5-yard targets. I kind of call it expecting your red dot to be there, but Ben Stager and them call it predictive shooting, and I think that's a better way of saying it. I didn't come up with it first, so. Everyone know, if you don't know what predictive shooting is, basically it's expecting things to happen. So the way I explain this is when we want to walk, what do? Right? Yeah, you start to lean forward. If you break it down and you think about it, you lean forward and then your foot catches you, right? You expect your foot based on, I've done this a million times. It's a subconscious action. I want to go forward. So all you think is, I need to go forward. Your body automatically does all this stuff. It leans forward and then your foot comes out and catches you. You don't go, I need to walk forward. That's not how you do that, right? You just lean forward and your foot catches you. So within a certain distance, it is very effective to expect, if you have a good presentation, your grip is consistent and effective, you can get to it, right? You don't have this inconsistent all over the place grip. It's very, reasonable to expect, hey, my dot's gonna be there, right? And I'll show you, even if it's not there, on real close targets at like 5 yards, maybe you'll shoot a Charlie, but if your grip is really, really solid, you're probably gonna hit that alpha. Does that make sense? So the way I demo this for you guys, I'll just use this target. We're gonna do this real kind of close so you guys get a feel for it. So go ahead and throw eyes and ears on. Okay, so the way I demonstrate this is first I like to show the time, right? The difference in time. So my hand speed, I'm going to try and keep it exactly the same. But this first one, I'm going to shoot when I see the dot. So basically it's going to be dot appears and I make the decision to fire based on where my red dot is, right? I'm just going for a center mass A zone. Okay, 1, 3, 4. I'm like, that's pretty decent, right? Center mass the A zone, not perfect, but right. So 1, 3, 4. Now what I'm gonna do, guys, I'm gonna expect my red dot to be there. I'm not going to wait for that confirmation. I'm basically doing the exact same thing when I walk. I go, this is such a big, easy target. It's not like I'm gonna miss the earth with my foot, right? It's not like I'm gonna be like, whoa, where's my foot, right? It's pretty easy for us to just, because we've done this, expect it to be there. All right, so same hand movement. I'm not speeding anything up with my hands. Okay, right? Do I care about this? No, I was looking right here. So honestly, if you want the honest truth, I missed the same amount, right? If I'm so concerned about my vision was here and I moved this, oh well. At this distance, I don't care. That's practical accuracy, right? I'm not putting the rounds through the same hole. But generally, to put the rounds through the same hole, I have to stand there and waste my time anyway. How fast do you think that was?
0.97.
0.88. Did it look like a sub-second draw? I mean, when you watch it, yeah, maybe it's fast, but did I look like I was or doing anything crazy? No, I had just made the decision, I'm gonna fire, right? My grip feels good. As I'm building my grip, I should have enough of a relationship with my gun and feel what it feels like in my hand to know where that dot's gonna be, to expect it to be there. Does that make sense? This is repeatable. I can do this without my red dot. I can turn my red dot off, and honestly, I don't need a red dot to do this, right? Where the red dot is really helpful is that first shot, I make the argument, if this is self-defense and real world and the paper's trying to kill us, I make the argument you're not gonna wait to see your dot. If that guy's that close trying to kill you, you think you're gonna wait, especially if he's lifting a weapon or doing something like that, you really think you're enough of a ninja and you've been in enough gunfights to say, oh, I'm just gonna slow down and see my red dot. I'm going to say probably not, right? For the average person, probably not. So that's why I think this skill is really important to train, and especially from concealment. My God, does this make concealment, draws, and all that stuff really important. Guys, when we get back to 25 yards, time equals distance. You got a little bit more time, right? So yeah, when I get to 25, that's where I probably wanna say, hey, I need to make sure that dot is on that target, right? And I just demonstrated that to you, right? That's where we start to fall off, that 20-yard target. Does this make sense to everybody? Pretty simple concept. So when you guys are doing this, I'm gonna have you guys just kind of do a couple of this. We don't need to spend tons and tons of time on this. This is, again, something that you should really take the time to go to the range. You can do it at an indoor range, whatever, to develop this. So I don't wanna spend a ton of your ammunition today, but this is free candy on that close target. This is where a lot of you guys are kind of losing time. That's an open target at 5 yards. you especially have the grip for that. You can shoot that all day with like expecting your red dot to be there. And most of you guys, if you get behind your gun and you get a good grip, hey, grip is good. Once that gun comes to extension, it will really cut down the time if you're expecting that red dot to be there, right? So the thing I always say to people is decision making, right? Ready? Red or blue?
Blue.
All right, took you about how long to make that decision? 0.2 of a second? All right, the answer is blue. Red or blue?
Red.
That was on purpose. But you see, when you know the answer, when you can expect the answer, it's conceivable that all you're waiting for me to do is verbally say something you already know the answer, right? That's the difference. Decision making, going, I'm gonna see the red dot, then fire, versus I know the red dot's gonna be there, so I'm already gonna fire, right? The target's close enough. Now, this is not to be used at freaking 25 yards. That's not what I don't want that to be confused as like, don't see your sights or anything. No, I want to be still looking through my optic to see my red dot so I can track what's happening as I'm shooting for multiple shots. Make sense? This is free candy as far as that sub-second draw. Hand speed doesn't need to be insanely fast or anything like that for you to get a really, really clean draw. Make sense? So I'll do one more demo where I really push hand speed and we'll see how fast I can draw because it's cool. So I just want you guys, when you're doing this drill, just get in the habit of, having your red dot on, making sure you're being very specific with your vision, drawing, and as soon as that gun gets level, firing. Don't wait, see where it's at. We're gonna be close enough to where if you have a delta or something, odds are you probably felt it in your grip. Make sense? All right, let's go for a little bit of hot, nasty speed. 7.3. Didn't feel great, but I could have called it still over here. But your job as your partner is if you see them basically draw out and stall for a second, like they're looking for something, be like, hey dude, you're trying to accept it is what it is. Just shoot, right? Unless it's like you draw and you're like, that. Okay, you can stop if you do that, right? But if you see that person, they're coming up, as soon as those hands are level, fire. So what he's saying is super crucial. Index points, right? That sounds super tactical and high speed. It's true. So what he's saying is like when he gets, and I had the same issue, and this is huge with consistency of grip. Our hands tend to just float out here, right? If I say, put my hand out here, you won't land consistently in the same spot. And you guys will see that like if you put your hand up like that, it's pretty hard to not have it over travel. This hand has way more work to do. So as far as hand speed goes, this one should be moving really quick. This one should just come in and touch, I like kind of here, I don't care if it's here, wherever it's. I try and do it the same place I grab my garment for concealment, right? But I need to have that touch point, or else what he's saying is this hand's gonna go straight up and I'm gonna like kind of create like a collision with my hands. And that usually results in a not very consistent grip. So it doesn't have to be this, but just make sure that you have some sort of touch point so that your hands are consistent, right? For concealment, that's usually our garment and then, coming back out. So really good point. Thank you for reminding me of that. All right, on you guys, whenever you're ready. Good, good, very good. See how good your index is? Good. There's a slight pause, but not too bad.
So I got
Bad grip. Okay, cool. That'll cause a lot of hesitation. Make sure you're still trying to look through your optic, right? You might fire before you're perfectly through it, but make sure you're trying to look through that glass at least. Little bit of pause on that one, so just trust it. Charles, a little bit like when you go, just trust it. Little bit of pause on that one. There, that's what I'm looking for. See, there was no degradation in accuracy either. It was going where you wanted it to go. You just had that slight, wait, I need to perfectly see a sight. Your grip is a sight picture. At this distance, your grip is absolutely a sight picture if it's consistent and effective. And evaluate that grip. When you get to the end of that, tell me if that grip feels like you could fire multiple rounds too, because that one looked a little bit like this hand might have bumped. Yeah. So all I care about is it's fine if it happens, but I want you to start making the connection of like, wait, I wouldn't be able to fire 6 rounds with that grip, so it's not doing me as much good. So I need that to be consistent. Very good. That one drifted a little left. Now let me ask you this. Could you have felt where that one drifted based on grip?
I felt it and I had a better grip at the end.
Good. All right, everyone good on that? Did pretty good? All right, so I'm going down range just so you guys know. So really good stuff. Like this drill, again, I don't want you guys to spend an insane amount of, ammo doing this today. But man, is this drill tell you some stuff about what's going on. I'm not gonna pick on anyone in particular. I'm just gonna kind of go down the line and look, right? So you had a couple where it was like, hey, I was waiting and stalling out to see the sight in the middle. You had 2 Charlies out of that entire thing. So it's like, did you find like, man, I'm waiting for really no good reason. Yeah. You felt that where it's like, hey, everything that was like, you have a good draw, you have a good presentation. You can expect a lot of things to happen that you didn't, maybe weren't thinking. It's like, hey, I have to stop and wait for that iron sight to settle right in the center of the target. This is what I would call a very practical group. And at this distance, what do you think is more important, speed or accuracy?
Speed.
Yeah, it teeters a little bit more towards that speed where it's like, hey man, if you can get that first shot on that target in like a 0.8, I'll take that all day over like a 1.3 dead center of the thing. And I'm probably gonna put it dead center anyway if things are going right. Solid, you had a couple that moved around on you, but like I said, you felt it, right?
Yeah.
The main purpose of all this, guys, like, do you see how you can start to call your shots with a grip? Like you don't even need your red dot. You can start to be like, that didn't feel right, right? Before you're even pressing that trigger, your hands interfacing with this thing are telling you when something doesn't feel right. In the same way that, you know, it feels normal when I walk forward. What do you think happens in the middle of the night when you're going to walk forward? I did it last night and kicked my rifle on my pinky toe and it hurt like a, But what happens when you do that, right? You lean forward and you kick something. What happens to everything? It all is like, whoa, and your brain goes, whoa, what's wrong, right? Same thing with a grip. That's what your brain should be doing. It's just like walking. You're expecting something to happen. If there's a blip in that, you'll fix it as you go. You go, whoa, that was crappy. Am I close enough? Does it matter? I first started teaching this. I was like, how do I teach this without teaching people they don't need to see their red dot? Because like you still want to see your red dot. And then Brantley Merriam's a USPSA guy. Some of you I think have shot with him. But he was like, oh, it's like a sight video. And I think that's like one of the best ways to do it is it's like, I'm just referencing kind of where the red dot is and paying attention to how it's like kind of, okay, it's here, it's here, it's here. Okay, my vision was here, but the dot landed over here, right? Okay, so in the next round, it will train you to like, oh, that's what I did wrong, I need to input. And that's how you start getting these like really fast, putting the rounds generally in the same spot type things. And again, I think this is much more akin to what's natural in a gunfight, right? I think this is more of how your brain's gonna work. It's a little bit more dynamic. It's a little bit more fast decision-making, fast processing that I think you're just gonna need. I don't think there's any way to slow down time, unfortunately. It'd be cool if there was. All right, so effective grip. I just wanna do, again, this is not a ton of them, but I wanna show you guys, mainly because this is kind of a train the trainer thing. If you ever go shoot with people, I want to show you how to like, hey, what's an easy way to see if a grip is effective, okay? So passive recoil control is one thing that I would say effective grip, right? It makes the grip basically is what we want to do is return the dot exactly where we're looking, right? Without having to really think about it, I just want the dot to return to where we're looking. Now there's a couple big misconceptions when it comes to grip is kind of recoil control or recoil mitigation. One really big misconception, and this is something that I still struggle with a little bit, is that we need to actively defeat recoil. And we don't. We essentially kind of do it passively by having an effective grip, right? These 9mm might seem like it, but they don't really have a lot of recoil. As you shoot more, you kind of realize this isn't a lot of recoil. You get used to it, you can control it. So think about a spring versus hydraulic. Okay? A lot of people, when they're trying to control recoil, mitigate recoil, whatever term you want to use, they are like a spring. A couple facts about a gun, right? When we fire, gun is going to go positive, right? So let's say this is neutral, we fire, gun's gonna go positive. Now, if our grip is effective, it'll mitigate, depending on the gun, depending on the ammunition or whatever, it might go more positive or less, right? But generally when I shoot, my gun's gonna go about that much positive, okay? What's the only way a gun goes negative?
If you draw it there.
If I push it there, right? So a lot of people think, oh, that's shot anticipation, right? You're anticipating the gun going off, so it's your fault, it's your shot anticipation, right? But really what ends up happening is if we consciously try and control recoil, we end up pushing the gun negative. So as the gun goes up and we're thinking, I need to control this, I need to stop it right when it gets to the top, then what we start doing is not relying on our grip to passively do that. And so the gun goes positive, and then by the time we realize recoil is happening, because we're trying to time it with our trigger finger or whatever, you know, we'll talk about trigger manipulation, but you know, if you're pulling the trigger from out here, you're pulling a little closer or whatever, and you're trying to time recoil push down, eventually what will happen is that will just kind of stop to work. It'll stop working for you. What we want is passively, our grip controls it, and probably a little bit of subconsciously when the gun goes down, we settle it, right? I'm not 100% sure. To be totally, completely honest with you, I don't know how much of it is us actually pushing down versus, you know, hey, gun went off, I pushed down, or, you know, how much are we doing that? Because I don't do it consciously, right? That's all I can tell you. I don't consciously think push the gun down at all. All I think is good grip, gun goes off, keep looking where I want the gun to return to. So if the gun goes positive and we see it go like grossly negative, right? I'm not talking about like a little bob at the end. That's not the end of the world. But if I see that gun dip down, right? If I'm shooting this drill that we're gonna shoot in a second and I put a round down here, who did that? You, right? You pushed into the gun kind of going down. Does that make sense? So what we should want is rather than being a spring that says, Gun's going up, I'm gonna pull that thing down and you have excess movement, we should be hydraulic. Gun's gonna go up, our grip will passively stop it, and then our vision is kind of just gonna settle it back down. Now you might say, that sounds kind of slow. That seems like that would take a long time. But I'm telling you, it's very strange, it really doesn't. And I'll kind of demo it for you. This drill, what we're kind of doing, I call this the follow the bouncing ball drill. Okay, so it's iron sights, red dot, whatever it is. We're measuring how good, when we fire a shot aimed, as the gun returns and that gun kind of settles, that we're firing immediately again. It's very much like as soon as the gun was leveled, we're firing. We basically want to fire, and as soon as that dot like recoil's done, we're firing again. What we want to see is how much deviation is there from where we were looking, right? So we're going to push this one back a little bit further. I'm not looking for you to put the same rounds, but what I really don't want you to do is don't adjust, right? We're trying to evaluate your grip. So don't shoot, watch the dot. So like, let's say this is my dot, right? I fire, my dot returns here, and I go, that's not right, and drag it over here. I just missed the lesson, right? The lesson was, why did my grip return me to here? Does that make sense to everybody? The lesson is not how tight. I know all of you, if I gave you time, could probably put a bunch of rounds on this black thing. That's not the point. The point is, I fire, I keep my vision here, gun recoils. Do I push the gun negative? What happens, right? Where does my red dot return to? So this should be very slow fire. This should be you guys really paying attention to what's happening and feeling out, is my grip really effective? If you see it return, way over to the left, that's probably your left hand not doing what it needs to do. Does that make sense? All right, so, any questions? Effective? All right, let me demo it real quick. I'll shoot this one. This is all shot up. Okay, so eyes and ears, good. So what I'll do is I'll put my red dot on that spot right there. I'm gonna fire, and then as soon as it returns, I'm gonna fire again. Again, I'm not trying to press the gun down. You can prep your trigger, you can slap your trigger, whatever you guys are comfortable with. We'll get into trigger confirmations and stuff. For me, I like to do this generally with a little bit of slack or my finger touching my trigger, right? Pretty good, right? Not too bad. Dot returned where I wanted it to. Pretty good. Dot returned where I wanted it to. Pretty good, right? So that would be, for me, what I'm looking to do there, right? Dots coming up. Those are probably about 0.3-ish splits. But basically, it's that kind of timed, we're trying to see what our grip is doing. We're trying to see what happens with our grip. Does that make sense? And watching each other, making sure that, like, if you see them fire and then adjust, be like, hey, I think you might have adjusted on that one. I want you guys to realize education is me training you how to train. That's all it is. Make sense? Any questions? Cool. Let's do it. So just get online with me right here.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're seeing them drift off to the left like that, that's probably a lack of pressure in your left hand. Mm-hmm. So make sure you crush with that left hand a little bit more.
Okay.
Add, and then what I always tell people is like max it out and then slowly back off when you find the efficient spot to be. So try and slow the splits down a little bit. Let that front sight, now you can kind of let your front sight settle. So I don't care if you like aim out at it and you sit there. All I want is that fire, and as soon as the gun returns to where you're looking at, fire, right? So this should be purely based off vision.
Gotcha.
Good, that's what I'm looking for. This drill is going to purely isolate how good your grip is. This is going to be called a torture test of your grip, okay? So what this drill is good for, testing your grip. What this drill is not good for, how you should press your trigger. Does that make sense? So this drill is designed to make you have the absolute, in my opinion, worst trigger press you can possibly have and see if your grip can withstand it. At this distance, a lot of you guys will probably be fine, right? But you're going to see that you have to really rely on your grip to do the right thing, okay? So all we're doing, you're gonna just start, you don't have to draw. I mean, if you want the reps from a draw, you can. Just make sure you start from a consistent grip, right? So get your grip to where you really want it, because that's what we're evaluating, right? So what you're gonna do is you're going to get that bring the gun out, just good to go. Aim where you want, good sight picture, everything feels perfect. You're just watching the sights where you're looking, you're all set. And then you're going to basically just float your finger in front of the trigger, mash, okay? You are going to simulate the worst trigger press you possibly can and see how well your grip withstands it. Honestly, you're probably gonna see a deviation in your grip, right? Especially depending on the trigger that you're running. I find that if I have a very light, like when I was shooting my CZ Shadow, I could smack the living crap out of that thing and it didn't matter. When I shoot a stock 6-pound Glock trigger, there's a little bit of some times where one gets away on me. I can still shoot it well, right? I could do that better and be more consistent. But what this is just designed to do is like abuse your grip, see what it keeps up with. Make sense? And then you guys will be able to like shoot, see what happens, stop and think. Be like, what did I actually feel, right? Conscious effort into developing subconscious pressure. So all I care about while you guys are doing this, can my grip withstand it? Where should I add more pressure? When in doubt, crush with that left hand, slowly relieve pressure. Don't be afraid to add pressure with your right hand. There's a trend going on that's like, relax your right hand, right? I don't shoot tense with this right hand, but I'm still gripping the gun, right? It's not like no pressure at all, the gun flopping around in my hand, okay? So play with the pressures of your grip. Pressure is a relative term, right? None of us have PSI gauges on us, right? So like when I say tight, okay, what does that mean? Is that like handshake tight, or is that like I'm falling off of a skyscraper, I need to hold onto this pipe tight? I don't know. So what's it gonna look like? Eyes and ears. If you guys want, come, I don't really care honestly if you kind of block the camera. You might be able to see it from the right side, whatever. Get on my side so you can see what I'm doing with the trigger. If you block the camera, I don't care. Okay, so same thing, I have my aim point, right? Don't put forward pressure. Don't like forcibly push your finger forward. Just start with your finger not touching the trigger. Does that make sense? When I did this drill, I was pushing forward to make sure I wasn't on the trigger. Then I would create like forward back pressure. Just float your finger in front of the trigger, right? Same thing, I'm going to aim. I get my dot where I want it. I make sure my pressures with my grip are good. Smack that trigger. Smack the trigger. Smack the trigger. Smack the trigger. Smack the trigger. Make sense?
Who's your daddy?
Yeah, I mean, abuse it. You know, you're gonna slap the crap out of it, and you guys already said, it's like, oh, that's good. No, my grip opened up a little bit. At this distance, it's hard to tell. If you do this at like 10 or 15, it gets real honest real quick. I mean, it's the difference, when I was doing it at 25, it is the difference between alpha or like Charlie and a delta, right? When you input, right? And that's me, right? So you might see that this opens up a little bit more, but does it make sense to everybody? Nothing crazy, not rocket science. Take your time, feel what happened. If you see one drift way off to the side, think about what pressure could I use to mitigate that. You know, did my right hand too loose? Try stuff. Don't just kind of get up here and go through the motion. I want you guys actively thinking. Train the trainer, right? All right, on you guys. Yeah, if you want to. Abusing our trigger, our grip, right? So now you guys know how to check your grips. So you should be constantly running that in your head, right? So if I go through drawing and I draw the gun and my grip feels jacked up, like ding, 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 sign, right? But when you get down to it, like you do kind of need live fire sometimes to isolate and really see where the issues might be coming, right? So before we move on, grip, we're not really moving on from it. Like you're shooting, you're gonna be analyzing grip the whole time. I want from each of you something that you kind of feel like your tendency is, or just something you were telling yourself while you were drilling, right? So how about for you? Something you were saying to yourself while I was drilling. Yeah.
Putting him in a window. In
Yep.
my mind, like, instead of trying to find the dot, I'm always just like, window.
Yeah.
You know.
So window, target focus. Yeah. That's kind of what you're saying to yourself is like, you can get visually overloaded. Mm-hmm. So when you try and look for this little dot, it's like you're panicked, it's a quick thing. Yeah. It's like, What I always tell people, and this is again, Ben just has really good ways of saying stuff. He calls this kind of like awareness, I think. So I don't know if this is exactly how he explains it, but I like the term awareness. This is how I explain this. So if it's wrong, it's not Ben, it's me. Awareness, right? You might not be able to perfectly see my hand when I do this, but you're aware that something happened, right? That's kind of what our red dot is doing when we're shooting that quickly, right? So if we're trying to like see, if you guys all try and panic and watch my hand, you're like, what's happening? But like, you just have to be aware that, hey, I was looking here and I saw I'm aware something happened. Believe me, if something red was right here and you were looking here, your round is going somewhere where that red thing was and you were looking, right? So it's target focus. Putting yourself, hey, I'm just looking there, bringing the gun in front of me, trying not to change focal planes. It's tricky and it takes time, and I still need to work on it, right? For me, it's more at 20 yards. That's where I will start to look at a target, or I'll look at my dot, rapidly change my focus from dot to target. In reality, you don't need to do that. You just look at the target. Anything with your grip? You said basically getting a good draw is the key to your grip being confident.
Yeah, it's the draw and then the grip afterwards. The grip.
Hard to be consistent.
It's hard to be consistent.
Okay, so you know what an effective grip feels like. It's just hard sometimes to get there.
Yeah.
Dry fire. Ding, 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 dry fire. You literally don't need to live fire for that. I mean, you can if you want to blow some money, like by all means, shooting's fun. But the answer to that is dry fire. How about for you?
Like left hand versus right hand pressure.
Yep.
Because I like usually just crushing with my right hand.
Ah.
And then my left hand was kind of just chilling.
Yep.
But then when I kind of switched it up and like relaxed my right hand and like did more with my left,
Yep.
it got a lot better.
Good. So that's a beginner's, or like some people have different tendencies, right? Some people naturally shoot fast, some people naturally shoot slow. Why I think the whole relax your right hand thing became a saying. Because a lot of people, when they start, crush with their dominant hand versus their left hand, and that's what you see. So as you start to reevaluate those pressures, like I said, pressure is relative. If you tell me to relax my hand, my gun starts flopping like a fish because I'm already at the point where it's like relaxed. I wouldn't define it as relaxed, but then again, I'm completely in a different mind state for having shot a handgun for such a long time. It feels like a glove. So like I wouldn't be able to tell you whether the glove feels tight or loose. I'm just so freaking used to it. That's what the glove feels like. Does that make sense? Yeah. So for you, that works great. You're thinking right hand needs to be a little bit more relaxed, chill out. I was death gripping with it. That's probably causing you to get trigger freeze and overexert. And then left hand can do a lot more of the work. And the drill that we're gonna do in a second will even more drive that home. You'll imagine there's different conformations for targets that we're shooting at. Like when you guys are shooting at this tiny dot, you're seeing more, right? You're slowing down and seeing more. Same thing when we do the drill at the end of the day, right? Close target, probably don't need to see that much. Middle target, maybe a little bit more. Far target, probably need to see a good amount. Make sense? So bear that in mind as you're thinking about different conformations. A lot of times we do this and people are like, I'm a god, and they'll just start spraying bullets at everything. But it's really about kind of, hey, what do I need to see in order to get my hits? Acceptable sight pictures or confirmation. So really, really good stuff. So there's lots of times we hear two metrics that shooting is measured by, but there's a third one that's insanely important and very much so overlooked. So what do you think the two most easy give me metrics that we measure shooting by?
How expensive your gun is.
How cool your kit is. Speed and accuracy, you said it, right? What do you think the third one is?
Consistency.
Consistency. Does anyone give a shit if I come out here and burn a bill drill down like one time in a blue moon and I can't do it again? Doesn't really matter. Is that really what I did? Not really. So shooting, even in these drills, like I can do a cool drill, like you guys saw me do good on that or whatever. You don't know that I could do that over and over and over and over and over again. Maybe I got lucky, right? But the reality is that that's for you guys to evaluate your consistency. It's an extremely overlooked thing, and it's really, really important. Long courses of fire, your grip, one of the things that would be a subcategory of it being effective, would it being consistently effective over time, right? So you could call that functional, you could call it durable, you could call it whatever. But if I start a course of fire, I need to be able to shoot that entire course of fire with my grip lasting, or else my grip's not consistent, therefore it's not effective, right? The two negate each other. So when you measure your shooting, always try and find a way that you can also measure how consistent am I being, right? Even if you're pushing speed, okay, when I'm pushing, how consistent am I being, right? If the wheels completely fall off and we ignore consistent, I'm pushing speed. It's like, bro, your Chariot has no wheels. It's just sliding and burning down the road. Like you're not paying attention whatsoever. But it's like, hey, I got a little bit of a wobble in the back right tire. Okay, at least you're tracking what's going on. It's okay that the wheels are like, you're pushing it. Does that make sense? So many people that shoot, especially competition, you will see them, they'll crush a stage and they'll come to you and be like, God, that's so good. And it's like, I'm living up to my potential as a shooter. And you're like, dude, that was like a minority for you to shoot that stage that way. Like it's good, don't get me wrong, like good for you. But it's basically the equivalent of like cocaine, right? They take a hit and it's like amazing, and then everything else is downhill from there, right? So they're always chasing that one little high where the stars align and they crush the stage and they're like way above their performance. It's like I tell people, go for a hit factor window. Like when you're shooting a match, it's 18 stages, or when you're, any given day you walk out the door and you have, it might be that day where God forbid you have to draw your gun. You better hope you're consistent. Like that's probably one of the most fundamentally important things. Yeah, sure, let's be fast, let's be accurate. But if we can't be consistently both of those things, I guess go play the lottery, like flip a coin. Make sense, everybody? Speed, accuracy, and consistency.